Watch and burn.
Hey everyone, so tonight I want to discuss the soundtrack from the 1995 film Kids. Now, I'm going to have a hard time talking about this mainly because I'm not going to be able to divorce images and scenes from the movie from the soundtrack, so I'm going to end up inevitably talking probably more about the movie than I am the soundtrack, and I do apologize for that. But I have always loved this soundtrack mainly because of Daddy Never Understood and Raise the Bells. And I love them for two very different reasons. Daddy Never Understood is just a thrashy, sort of mid-paced punk rock, good time. And whereas Raise the Bells is so quiet and so peacefully introspective. And I find that the fact that they used Daddy Never Understood at the start of this movie and they chose to use Raise the Bells at the end of the movie it made good sense, but at the same time, considering all of the more quiet chaos that took place at the end of the film, the argument could be made that they could have used Daddy Never Understood then too, perhaps more effectively. But then choosing to use Raise the Bells at the end, showing New York waking up through the calmness of the bells, and then having Casper wake up naked on the couch saying, "What the fuck happened?" With Telly's narration talking about how sex is the only thing that he has, and if you take that from him, he has nothing. It is a really, I don't know, trying to think of the best way to put this. Like, it's the most sort of emotionally sound way to conclude the film is by using such a rhythmic and introspective track like Raise the Bells. And I do love the shots of New York sort of waking up in the morning. I thought that was really cool too, but again, I'm talking about the movie and I'm not talking about the soundtrack. I shouldn't be doing that. Who else is on here? Slint is on here, Sebadoh is in here, and of course Folk Implosion's on here because Folk Implosion contain elements of Sebadoh. Sebadoh, people from Sebadoh, I think one person from Sebadoh, I'm not sure. They started, or they do Folk Implosion. Daniel Johnson's on here, of course, it's the 90s. Other tracks on here that I absolutely loved was Jenny's theme, of course. Daddy Never Understood, Raise the Bells, and Jenny's theme were my three favorite songs. But overall, the tone of the soundtrack matches the tone of the film. This is such an ugly yet accurate film from the mid-90s that has sadly sort of kind of been forgotten, because now it seems like that whenever anybody references this point in the 1990s, everybody always says, well, have you seen the movie mid-90s? Because that was so accurate and yada, yada, yada. And I liked mid-90s, but I felt that Kids did a better job of summing up the mid-90s than the movie mid-90s, because I was in high school in the 90s, and my friends were the people in Kids. That was my peer group 110%. Like, they used to like live for beating the shit out of people at like skate parks or at the mall. Like when the dude bumps into Casper in the movie and Casper whacks him with the skateboard and they beat the shit out of him or pretty much beat him to death. And at the end of the beating, they hit him with the skateboard. Back in the 90s, that was called a 7-ply surprise. And my fucking friends loved doing that shit to people. Now, just for the record, I am in no way condoning that kind of behavior. At this point in the mid-90s, I wasn't any more impressed with it then than I am now. So I'm not bragging, discussing how my friend group were so tough and shit. My friends were fucking apes. Okay, they were goddamn cavemen that didn't know how to behave. But nonetheless, I will say, the movie Kids did a really good job of summing up how I lived circa 1995. It was honestly all about parties, stealing shit, and unprotected sex. That was accurate. And my friends beating the fuck out of anybody who'd be stupid enough to be walking alone at night. And just for the record, I did try to stop them from beating the shit out of people from time to time, but they would just refer to me as being gay, or say I was gay because I didn't want them to beat people up. Somehow not wanting to be a part of some violent act makes you a homosexual. So none of that really ever did any good, but I still really liked my friends, so I didn't stop hanging around them. And which anyways, had you stopped hanging around your violent peer group, that would have been social suicide, because they could have just transitioned into beating the fuck out of you too. I don't know, it never happened to me. But another reason why you don't just sort of abandon your peer group, because that shit can come back to haunt you fast. But yeah, I mean, I love the score for this, or the soundtrack for this. I love the bands on here. I love the attitude. But again, I keep getting lost in the movie. So the soundtrack does complement the movie incredibly well, but I keep getting lost in discussing the film. So I think I'll just stop there. So thank you so much for hanging out with me while I attempt to discuss the soundtrack from the 1995 film Kids. I don't think I did a very good job, but thanks for hanging out anyways. And like always, if you liked this discussion, don't forget to do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, please don't forget that the world is a better place because you are in it. I'm gonna go. Have a good night.